Hey, and welcome back to 7 Steps to Smile. Today, we're talking about why losing feels twice as painful as winning feels good, and how that shapes our decisions. And also, what we can do to outsmart it. Have you ever heard of the Monty Hall paradox? It's pretty famous, so I wouldn't be surprised if you have, but if you are like how I was a few weeks ago, you have no idea what it actually is. Let me set the stage for you. You're on a game show, and there are 3 doors. Behind one is a car. We like cars. Behind the other 2 are goats. We don't really like goats. If you like goats more than cars, then pretend that there's nothing behind the other 2 doors. You weirdo. You pick door 1. The host opens door 3. It's a goat. Then they ask, do you want to switch? Most people don't. It feels risky to switch. You might lose what you already have behind the door you've chosen. But here's the thing. Statistically, switching doubles your chances of winning. Our brains would rather keep a losing door than risk letting go of a winning door. That's the moral of the story, and why the Monty Hall paradox is so powerful and so popular, and that's loss aversion. Loss aversion comes from behavioral economics. My favorite academic, his book's still on my bedside table, Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, they came up with the idea of loss aversion. So I spoke about Kahneman in the last episode, and I'll probably be bringing him up a lot more. They found that losing $100 hurts about twice as much as winning $100 feels good. Simple example that's quite relatable, I think, is if you lose $500, you'll think about it all day. But if you find that same $500, you'll be happy for maybe 10 minutes. Brain imaging shows that stronger activation in the amygdala and the insula, which are very fancy names for the fear and pain centers of our brain. So the amygdala is the fear center, and the insula is the pain center. Those parts of our brain have stronger activation when we face potential losses, even when those losses are tiny. So what that tells us is that your brain literally treats losing as pain, not just metaphorically, physically. Your brain interprets losing as pain. And that means that we are neurologically wired to avoid losing, even when it costs us the chance to win. And I think that's why a lot of people don't take the chances, because they're looking at the cost of what if it doesn't work? Or what am I losing by taking the chance? What is the opportunity cost? But it's a powerful neurological phenomenon that is hardwired into us, and it shapes our everyday life. I mean, have you ever held on to a bad investment because selling would make the loss feel real? That's loss aversion. Maybe you stayed at a job that you outgrew because it felt like you were throwing the years away that you've already invested. That's a sunk cost fallacy, but it's made possible through our aversion to loss. We even stay in relationships that don't serve us, that don't bring us joy or happiness, because leaving feels like losing what we've already built. There's a connection here to more research in psychology and behavioral economics. And studies show that the endowment effect, which is the tendency to overvalue what we already own, stems directly from loss aversion. Basically, once something is ours, losing it feels personal. Loss aversion doesn't just shape how we spend money, it shapes how we spend our lives. So, What's the danger here? Maybe everything's fine. Maybe everything's safe. But what's the danger of playing not to lose? The problem is we start making decisions for safety and not growth. We choose certainty over opportunity. We avoid risk even when the odds are in our favor. We stick with the familiar even when it limits us. There's this thing that I read. It's you choose the familiar pain over the pain of changing. And we only change when the pain of staying the same hurts more than the pain of changing. The analogy that comes to mind when I think about this is it's like you playing soccer where the only goal is not to concede. You'll never score, but you'll feel safe. For all the soccer fans out there, it's just parking the bus, putting all your players behind the ball and making sure the other team doesn't score. From research, what Kahneman and Tversky showed, also I don't know if I'm saying this man's name properly. I probably should have checked that, but here we are. They showed that people would rather take a guaranteed smaller win than risk a bigger one with the same expected value. What that means in practical terms is we would rather not lose $100 than win $150. That means that we are risk averse. So the cost of avoiding loss is often the loss itself. Those missed chances, delayed dreams, and unrealized potential, that's the cost of staying safe. That's the danger of playing not to lose. But there's a reason that we have this hardwiring of trying not to lose what we have, of being averse to risk, being loss averse. It's good sometimes, and it's a evolutionary, biological hardwiring. It evolved for survival with our ancestors. In the wild, back in the day, avoiding loss meant staying alive. It meant being on the lookout and making sure that we don't go into a new area because there might be a predator waiting in the bushes that'll jump out and eat us. But we don't have those same problems anymore. Our biological and neurological hardwiring is still prehistoric. But we have more modern problems. I mean, the kitty hawk, the precursor to modern-day aeroplanes, was only invented in 1903. That's just over 100 years ago. And now we have 747s flying in the sky and fighter jets that are supersonic. We have made so much progress as a society in such short time that our biology and our neurology hasn't had the chance to keep up. In the wild, avoiding loss meant staying alive. It helped us to avoid reckless decisions, to waste, and it overcame our overconfidence. If you never felt the sting of losing, you'd probably never save money. You'd never lock the door. You'd never study for exams. So there is still reason for us to have this loss aversion. It prevents us from creating bigger problems in our lives by keeping us fearful of what we might lose. But loss aversion becomes a problem when it stops protecting you and it starts preventing you. That seatbelt helps you, but at some point, if it gets too tight, it can start choking you. So, what do we do about it? How do we outsmart this loss aversion, this biological hardwiring? How do we overcome it? We need to change the way we think, the way we speak about things. It's not, what if I lose? It's, what could I gain? instead of thinking about what am I giving up to start something new, and what if this new thing doesn't work, this new business that I start, new project, the time that I'm taking away from something to put into something else. Instead of thinking about what you lose, think about what's on the other side. Even if it doesn't work out, what knowledge, what relationships, what information could you gain? Behavioral reframing reduces this emotional intensity. That's what it is. It's flipping the narrative, and it's used in cognitive behavioral therapy all the time. Instead of I might fail, try I might learn. The next thing you could do is you could pre-commit. Take all of the decision capital out of it. Take all of the energy of making a decision out of the action. Remove all the decision points by setting rules in advance. You can make a decision once off right now. I'll invest $1,000 monthly no matter what. No matter what, I will invest $1,000 in this fund or in a stock, wherever it's going. And that's a very easy way to get into investing and building wealth for yourself, passively. Another thing you could do, and something that I'm probably going to do, hopefully. No, I mean, I'm talking about it, so I'd be hypocritical if I didn't, right? I'll publish one episode a week, good or bad. Hopefully this is a good one, but I'll leave you to decide that. The point of this is to decide once and then repeat the action. Take all the thinking out of it. Another thing that we could do is play the long game. Loss aversion shrinks when we think about it in long term. In long-term contexts, gains compound over time. In the short term, what we're losing right now doesn't really matter all that much. So zoom out. It's a shift in perspective, similar to changing the narrative and behavioral reframing, but this is more of a change in perspective. Think about the long term. What you lose today doesn't matter in terms of the compounded gains that you would get over time. The next thing that we could try is to desensitize yourself to small losses, normalizing small losses. Everything is information. You win and you learn. You learn what to do. You lose and you still learn, but this time you learn what not to do. You could treat these experiences as tuition fees, not failures. You're not losing, you're paying for a lesson. That's important. You're not losing, you're paying for a lesson. Everything is information. And in that way, we become a lot more okay with losing. As long as we're losing small and it doesn't set us back too much, it's okay. Because we're not going to win all the time. And we know that. But we'd rather take the chance. That's why you're listening, right? The last thing that we're going to talk about in how we can overcome our hardwired disposition to loss aversion is to use loss aversion. Instead of pretending like it's not there, instead of trying to fight it, use it for motivation. Flip it to your advantage. Tell yourself, I'll lose momentum if I skip today. You're going to lose that momentum and you don't want to. So you won't skip. You'll go to the gym. You'll stay on that eating plan. You'll make that piece of content, whatever it is. You'll create loss-framed accountability. Missing out will feel worse than actually doing the work. And in that way, you sort of gamify the pain. You sort of keep streaks for yourself. And you use your brain's bias against itself. You can't delete loss aversion. It's hardwired. But you can at least reprogram it. So, what have we spoken about today? Loss aversion makes us cling to comfort and resist risk. But then, every opportunity costs something. What you're not changing, you are choosing. And avoiding loss is its own kind of loss. The loss of what could be. You can't grow without letting go. As dumb as it might sound, sometimes losing is how you win. This week, notice one decision where you're playing not to lose. And ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid to? What could go unbelievably right for me here? It's okay to care about what you could lose. But don't let it cost you what you could gain. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next week.